All right, in the interest of time, I think it's time to get started. So welcome to the American Heart Association's Empowered to Serve Business Accelerator Faith-Based Workshop. My name is Diego Ortiz, and on behalf of the American Heart Association, I'd like to thank everyone for joining today's webinar. Because we are on Zoom, we want to remind everyone to please make sure that you take a look at the chat box. Throughout the presentation, we will be sharing useful links, including the first link that we're going to share, which is a survey to help us at the American Heart Association understand how we can better work with you. And we also want to encourage people, if you do have questions, to please type them into the chat box, and we will do our very best to answer those questions either today during the workshop or as we continue to move forward with the accelerator. All righty, and now I want to turn things over to Pamela Garmin Johnson, National Vice President of Health Equity and National Partnerships for the Office of Health Equity at the American Heart Association, who will serve as today's moderator. Pamela, welcome.
Well, thank you so much, Diego, for that wonderful introduction. And good morning to everyone. On behalf of the American Heart Association, I am excited that you have joined us today to talk about the Faith-Based Accelerator. And on top of that, I am joined by two dynamic individuals who will share their experience in leading faith-based organizations and how we have been able to make an impact from connecting community to the faith-based institution and making an impact from a business perspective. Again, we are so grateful that you are here. We are living in an unprecedented time where the coronavirus is impacting everyone, regardless of race, religion, age, or gender. We want to assure you that the American Heart Association is dedicated to the health and well-being of all individuals and their families and every community, everywhere. Not just today, but going forward into our future and whatever lies ahead. Now more than ever, people are turning to places of worship for help and for hope. Our mission as an organization is to be a relentless force for a world of longer, healthier lives. It's more important than ever. And the American Heart Association remains deeply committed to equity, and specifically health equity, as evidenced by our 2024 goal, which reads, and let's listen to these words: every person deserves the opportunity for a full, healthy life. As champions for health equity, by 2024, the American Heart Association will advance cardiovascular health for all, including identifying and removing barriers to healthcare access and quality. Now, that is a bold statement, if you really think about it, because we're talking about equity, we're talking about impacting everyone. And not only have we set this goal, but we have made 10 commitments to remove barriers to health. You hear me? 10 commitments, which again is impressive. So not only are we making a bold statement, but we are also putting specificity and intentionality around what that statement actually means. So number one, we are investing in community-led solutions to address health inequity and structural racism. And as you may or may not know, that the AHA has declared structural racism as a risk factor for cardiovascular health. Again, not only making a statement, but making a commitment around how we will execute against our goal. Number two, launching in partnership with the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, which is HHS, there is a $121 million nationwide hypertension initiative to address a main source of poor cardiovascular health in Black Hispanic, and Indigenous communities funded by the federal government. Again, a bold initiative, and I actually have the pleasure to serve as the National Executive Director of that particular initiative. Number 3, leveraging our advocacy, science, and news media enterprises against companies targeting individuals in disadvantaged communities with unhealthy products, including sugary beverages and tobacco products, including e-cigarettes, with addicting flavors and menthol. And so if you think about just those 3 commitments, it really amplifies the fact that not only have we made this important goal toward 2024, but we have made these 10 commitments, and we highlighted 3 of them for you today, just to show that we are not only talking about it, but we are going to be about it. So Empowered to Serve, I know many of you may be familiar with this particular platform for the American Heart Association, but this platform was actually inspired by you, our volunteers around the country, who were really passionate about driving change through health justice and empowerment of their own communities. I know many times I have sat down with community organizations and volunteers, and their biggest feedback has always been, as community leaders and as members of communities, we have the solutions to our issues. What we need is the investment and support in being able to deploy those particular solutions. So today, you'll have the opportunity to hear from 2 leaders in the faith-based community during our panel discussion. And you'll learn more about the American Heart Association's Empowered to Serve faith-based accelerator. I'm so excited. This is the first one of its kind. And it is a grant funding initiative for faith institutions and leaders to scale their business models aimed at addressing the social determinants of health in their communities. So during our time together, we want to ask questions of our speakers, and you can actually ask questions by dropping questions in the chat box. We love to be engaged, so please utilize the chat box and type in your question in the Zoom chat box, and we'll address the questions during the Q&A section of the panel. And I am so honored, again, to be joined by 2 incredible faith-based leaders today. And we are so proud to call them American Heart Association volunteers and partners. Today we have Reverend Leroy Miles Jr. from Enon Tabernacle Baptist Church in Philadelphia, PA. And then also Bishop Dr. Abraham Shanklin from the Center of Transformation in Hanover, Maryland. Gentlemen, welcome, welcome, welcome. Well, we are going to start with introductions. First, Reverend Miles, will you please introduce yourself and what your position is at Enon?
Sure. So thank you, of course, for having me. We're super excited to be here. Bringing you greetings from Philadelphia, a tale of 2 cities. There's Philadelphia and then there's Philly, and we live in the tension between the 2. How about that? So yes, I serve as the associate pastor of pastoral care and counseling at Enon Tabernacle Baptist Church, where our senior pastor is Reverend Dr. Alan Waller. And I've been serving in that position, I think time flies, 12, 13 years in different capacities. But super excited to talk about the health initiatives that we are offering, the experiences that we've had over the years. And I'm also a board member. So I've been a board member here in Philadelphia, excuse me. I have my tie on, so Philadelphia, 2.5 years, and it's been a wonderful relationship. So again, excited to be here. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And Dr. Bishop Shanklin.
Well, good morning to you and to all of the members and the staff of the American Heart Association, and to all of those who are logging on today to get connected to what I believe is the continual work of the American Heart Association to reach out to the community and establish great bridges and connections for all of us who are doing this work. I am Bishop Dr. Abraham Shanklin Jr., the founder and executive director of the Center of Transformation in Hanover, Maryland. It is located 20 minutes south of Baltimore, 30 minutes north of Washington, D.C., 20 minutes south of Annapolis, with 4 minutes outside of the Thurgood Marshall, Baltimore, Washington International Airport. And I reside in the 4th wealthiest county in the state of Maryland. We have a last census population count of 564,000 residents. And our major employer is Fort Meade, which is about 10 minutes outside of us. And so we are very excited about the work that we are doing in this community and the partnerships that we have with AHA and others. And very excited about being on this panel this morning and having the opportunity to share with so many just ways that we can continue to do the community drive that we're all so passionate about. Thank you.
Oh, thank you so much. Well, you know, what I'd like to do is just level set and really talk about why the faith community is so critical in transforming and addressing the social determinants of health. And what do you know as a part of the faith community that others do not? And we'll just start with Bishop Shanklin, if you would weigh in on those two questions.
Great question. You know, in terms of addressing social determinants and coupled with what we know in our community that others may not know, one of my favorite ideas surrounding that is that faith-based organizations, churches, houses of worship, other nonprofits and such are literally what I believe the boots on the ground in the community. We literally walk the blocks, we walk the streets, we walk the neighborhoods, we walk the communities inch by inch. We know our community inside out. In other words, we are not just connected to our communities through third parties, through fourth parties, through fifth parties. We're connected to our communities because we're there literally and we're there personally because of our passion. And I wanted to make it clear that when we have our connections in the community, we want firsthand knowledge of what's going on. What are the determinants? What are the stumbling blocks? What are the hindrances? So essentially, we don't get a hearsay knowledge. We have a no-say knowledge. I know personally what's going on in our communities, in our neighborhoods, because we're there. And I think that is most critical in terms of really having the tremendous impact that we want to have. So it's not a hearsay, it's a no-say. That is our mantra in terms of connecting with our community. It's face-to-face interaction with people on a regular basis.
I love that. I love that so much. And of course, the boots on the ground. And I think that there's so many similarities about what that looks like and how even the AHA operates as a volunteer organization. And so just think about the power that we can harness by really being community centered. Thank you so much. Reverend Miles.
I think the word that comes to mind is, of course, we're engaged, but there are 3 words that I think will be woven into our conversation throughout the day. And for us, it's the trust and the dignity that we bring. And because of those 2 things, we have access to the people and the people have access to us. For us, being at the table is significantly important. To be a voice, significantly important. And the 3rd word is being prophetic. And it's not in a term in which we often use it. I can't predict what tomorrow is going to bring. I'm not in that respect a prophet. But when we're talking about being prophetic, we speak truth to power. And where power is clueless, we get to offer a more excellent way. An example of that is we were at a board meeting talking about vaccinations and that sort of a thing. And it kind of came up that, again, it seems to be that the Black and brown community is reluctant to get the vaccine. Sir, I know you're a physician. I know you've seen patients all day, but that's not the conversation that we're having. the conversation that we're having is, no, it's not about that we're reluctant. You gave us the information. We distilled the information. We made a decision. Now we are ready. Don't rush us. We're now ready. And now that we're ready, now the issue is around access. And because we trust, they trust us, and now you trust us, those types of relationships can be birthed. And out of that, dignity can flourish. So with boots on the ground, Bishop, I agree 110. And we're to speak truth to power. And then also where power is clueless, we give them options. And I think, Pam, you mentioned it as well. We have the answers. We know what we need. We just need the connectivity to bring it to fruition. And so relationships like that with the Heart Association have been fruitful in that vein.
Oh, thank you so much. And I loved both of your responses. And just to bring that through, trust, dignity, respect, and then the ability to take what is being presented to us, to be able to do our own research and then be able to make a decision. That's what we do in any type of business decision. We just don't say, oh, yes or no. We take the time. And I think that if I think about what others may not know, the process that we all go through allow us to have that exact same type of process. Thank you both for those responses. So Reverend Miles, I've actually had the privilege of attending both of your churches, so I will say that. And I've heard great things about both, but then because I have attended, I have seen firsthand the incredible work that is being done at both institutions. And so Reverend Miles, I would love for you to talk about some of the key initiatives that are at Enon and how you are working to transform communities.
Well, thank you for visiting and sharing with us. Amen. It's also very important. At the root of what we are and who we are is worship. Absolutely. And the transformation happens in the worship. But if you're asking me about community involvement and organizations that we've partnered with, I think one of the more salient discussions around social justice is birthed out of two programs that we have engaged in. One is called Safe Return. It is a national program. It doesn't happen often. It's kind of went away. But the Safe Return program is where persons who have parole violations and outstanding warrants come to a place and they can have their records expunged. The program is only as good as the partnerships. So we work with the City of Philadelphia, the courts, probation department, even the sheriff's department, and going back to that trust, and we work with the streets. So we set up this wonderful program, but of course the streets are reluctant because they are thinking, no, this is just gonna be one of those where you're gonna just grab us up once we show up. And so we assured them that that would not happen. And of course, the streets sent a few scouts. The day one is a 3-day program. And every time somebody walked out, numbers came. So the Safe Return was something, again, going back to the dignity. We promised no perp walks. We promised that if you come and you turn yourself in, that you will be treated fairly and your record will be expunged. It happened. Wonderful experience. The other program, and that's something that's happening now, is working with Uplift Solutions. We appreciate Uplift Solutions. Teef Bostic provides leadership there. And it's for returning citizens. It's a program that has been extremely successful over the years, has 100% job placement for those returning citizens, also works for persons on work release. We work with the local prisons to have that happen. But again, it's a program where men and women come, and it's not just Black and brown people, but primarily Black and brown folk who are participating in the program. But they come, it's a 6-week program in 2 parts. The first week is dealing with the head stuff and the heart stuff around good, positive decision-making, right choices in life, addressing those aspects of the person. And then the second half is the church is set up as a grocery store. So there's a checkout counter and there's shelves that are stocked, and persons, I didn't know what a barista was until they came on board, but persons are learning. So they're getting these valuable skills that are transferable and they're being employed. So those two programs alone are two programs that we're extremely excited about. And it is based on trust. It's at the church, so we're treating the participants with the utmost dignity and respect. And here again, this is something that where, as a church, it would not have happened without the necessary relationships. So thank you.
Thank you so much. Bishop Shanklin, would you like to weigh in on that question, please?
Yes, I would like to talk a little bit about the Center of Transformation. The Center of Transformation is the parent organization to the New Life Fellowship International Ministries, the New Life Child Care and Academy, the New Momentum Health and Wellness, and the New Image Development Corporation. And I want to talk to the pastors who so graciously lent their time to connect with this virtual program, which I'm so proud of the American Heart Association for putting together. But one of the reasons why the Center of Transformation, one of the main reasons why the Center of Transformation was given birth was because I've been a pastor for 27 years, being a senior pastor for 27 years here in the area. I learned quickly that a ministry cannot just simply thrive on the tithes and offerings that are collected every week into their churches. And if you're a pastor that's on this afternoon, you can just simply chat amen, because you know exactly what I'm talking about. The difficulty of, you can set the budget, you can make the budget to fulfill vision, to do community connections, but it's always a challenge because tithes and offerings are not they're not a consistent resource. So the Center of Transformation was birthed to develop multiple income generation things to fund ministry, to fund vision, to expand our community impact, our community reach. Because if we just look at what's coming in eternally, then essentially your vision and your ideas, Enon has been successful because they've learned to go outside of the collection plate on Sunday. And that's what the Center of Transformation, which represents real change and relevant solutions, we had to look at how do we go outside the collection plate to continually perpetuate our impact in the community without always having our palms up trying to beg the community. And so one of the initiatives that we started was really targeting the support of businesses. And in order to support businesses, what I started doing is I started creating and cultivating an atmosphere of business-friendly talk in our congregation, in our organization here, speaking about the value of supporting businesses, local business owners, and then transitioning from there to not only just supporting local business owners that start right outside my backyard, but also tapping into providing them with support as they continue to, everybody knows the value of small business and how many people they employ, how many young people within our congregations all across the country who get their first start in a business somewhere, learning some of the soft skills that they need, learning some of the polished presentations they need to make when they're in face-to-face contact with people. And so we started things like creating business incubators. We started developing entrepreneurial support networks and creating virtual roundtables, especially since the pandemic came upon us. We started developing brown bag lunch symposiums where we brought in key business leaders from around the area who came in and spoke to burgeoning and neophyte businesses with how to put things in place, how to launch a business. We've had connectivity where we were training people how to connect with government to get awarded government contracts, whether it's federal, state, or local government, teaching how to get your MBE to be certified as an MBE in the county. Trying to connect with Black, brown, and beige people to have the idea of how to be self-sustaining and self-supporting. So we hosted business relationships. We had faith-based organizations who understood that, you know, at the end of the day, if we're going to continue to have impact in our community, we have to find ways to fund that vision, to fund that idea, to fund that. And so we just begin to build those relationships. We build those relationships with business leaders, cultivated a business atmosphere, and then started planning the idea of what kind of businesses that we wanted to be in partnership, businesses that we wanted to launch, businesses that we wanted to be involved in that never compromise our values here in our organization, but at the same time allowed us to continue to be strategic in reaching our community. And so that's what the one of the foundational pieces of the Center of Transformation is pro-business in every way. And it has allowed us really to reproduce and to really impact. And I can't tell you the number of young people who have been stirred to business ideas. Everything from, and how many businesses we've helped to launch, from someone who's doing t-shirt business. I even have, these bracelets on from someone who just launched a business idea, and we nurtured that, gave them a vision, helped them write a script. And you just be amazed that when you see value in people, it affirms the value that's in you. So that's a part of what the Center of Transformation has been doing.
Oh, thank you both for those examples. And, I remember when we first launched our Accelerator, and, I will say there was like, well, why would we do that? Why would we, spur innovation with social entrepreneurs? I was like, but that's how we invest in, we provide capital to those that normally don't get capital. And that is how we show value. It is how we show dignity and respect. And it's how we uplift community-centered solutions. And I'm gonna throw out one, I just recently read this, and it has to do with African-American owned businesses, that if most African-American owned businesses are, they're sole proprietorships, right? They only employ just themselves. But if every Black-owned business were to employ one person, we would eradicate unemployment for African Americans. And I recently just read that. And so when I think about that, even if it's not at 100%, but the notion of moving from just being able to employ one person to move forward a vision around being able to impact a community, that is how we can truly have rapid transformation. So we're going to move on. And you've touched on this a little bit. So, our lives have changed. And for some, they may think that we're going to go back to exactly how we were before COVID-19. And I think most of us recognize that that's not going to happen. And so we've all had to evolve during this time. We've gotten savvier being online, even, and I don't want to speak about your membership, but I've watched it with the older population that may not be as digitally savvy. They've learned how to get online. And so what does that mean? Not only what does it mean for your congregation, but what are you going to continue to evolve as a result of changing during COVID-19? And Reverend Miles, if you'd like to start.
Yeah, it's about adaptation for sure, for sure. A lot of the health initiatives that we have had, we've had to pivot. That's the word, right? Everyone's using that term, pivot. And so on years past, as a matter of fact, right around this time last year, right before the country shut down, we were going to have our 10th annual Know Your Numbers event, where we bring approximately 1,000 men to the church to get metabolic screenings, etc. Heartbroken, it did not happen in 2020, but I'm proud to say, and this was just actually featured in the AP Wire on yesterday, that we reintroduced or relaunched the Know Your Numbers outside. And so the weather just happened to be nice enough in Philadelphia. And again, through partnerships, in this particular instance with the, Einstein, as well as the Heart Association, our nurses ministry, we set up in our parking lot, and persons drove through. They were able to receive a take-home colon screening kit, kind of in honor of Chadwick Boseman. We figured, hey, if Black Panther can get colon cancer, we don't have a shot. And so we had to bring that back. So people would drive through a gauntlet, pick up their kit. HIV screenings. We're doing a cognitive health screening on this following week because we're doing the exact same event. It's just 2 weeks. We thought we missed some folk this past Saturday, so we'll have it 2 Saturdays in a row. You keep driving through, and all this, you're not getting out your car. And so you keep driving, and you come around the corner. Our nurses ministry, they are doing blood pressure checks, and that's through a self-monitoring machine, and that was as part of a donation from the Heart Association. So that's been a wonderful experience. If you test high, you actually get to take a machine home for a month. It's a kind of a loaner program, pretty awesome. Glucose as well as cholesterol, keep coming around the parking lot. You're still in your car driving, and we were doing COVID screenings. It's a significant pivot, a significant event in such a time as this. So as a church, we're not open, we haven't reopened, and we won't necessarily open anytime soon. And so this is an example of the church taking the risk, being relentless, being willing to fail. And that's something that we've always said. We're willing to take the risk. And even if we fail, we learn something in the endeavor. So we do have a vaccine clinic that happens on Tuesdays, and we can talk more about that, I guess, a little later. But that's just an example of, in these difficult times, we were clear, the data showed that many persons, because they did not receive their regular or their annual screenings, were going to experience more of whatever. And so we, again, talking with the powers that be, and they could not figure it out. We said, well, we know how to bring a crowd. We can provide our space. You provide the human resource in one aspect, we'll provide the human resource in other aspects. It was a wonderful day. It happened. If you're in the Philadelphia area, please come this Saturday between 9 and 12, Enon Tabernacle Baptist Church, 2800 West Cheltenham Avenue in the Mount Airy section of the city. Thank you.
Well, first of all, congratulations.
Thank you.
That is absolutely amazing. And as I'm reading the chat, and I know we will answer Q&A later, I want to just acknowledge a few things. And one is that these solutions are race agnostic. So it has nothing to do with the race. It has to do with, these are models that can work in the community. And that's why we're here today. So we're hearing about best demonstrated practices and models and how we can amplify those across various communities. And so I think that I'm learning a lot. I'm taking copious notes as I'm working on these other projects and thinking about, how do we incorporate this? How do we ensure that we elevate up these models in other forums? And I know that we're representing the Eastern region of the AHA, but what we're discussing today not only is race agnostic, but it's also location agnostic. And so it is the power of bringing forward these demonstrated practices that can have an impact. The only other thing that I wanted to touch on, and is a part of this conversation, is COVID-19 in and of itself. And Bishop Shanklin, I know that you have been working in this area, and I know that you all have evolved. And so I would love to hear your feedback around this question, and then also touch on COVID-19. Thank you.
Thank you. And Pamela, that was just, that was well said. The one thing that we want to make sure that all the participants gather, and all of you know, you're very, because you're all our heroes in your own perspective areas, and the assignments that you have, the passion that you have. And so all of these ideas are, you know, they serve just as starting blocks. Myself and Pastor Miles, we're not presenting ourselves as though we have the corner block on what makes success. Success is what each of you are able to take hold of and then to translate that into what's most effective to accomplish the passion that you have, especially with respect to the community. COVID did come in, and I believe if the date serves right, we're literally commemorating the year when the nation went into lockdown, which caused a shift in houses of worship all across the country and literally all around the world. I will say this though, that which is key, our message never changed, although our methods do, which that's par for us. Houses of worship know how to adapt their methods. That's what Pastor Miles said, what Enon did, what a lot of you who are on, you know how to adopt your methods. That's why we survive. That's why we're able to survive when things like a global pandemic, lands in our lap uninvited. We are accustomed as houses of worship how to navigate our methods. Our message remained the same. It's just our methods. And so what's the one thing that COVID gave us? COVID produced isolation. So the Center of Transformation's desire was to counter that isolation. And so we got together with our team to decide, how do we counter one of the main things, aside from what COVID provided health-wise, it brought with it isolation. So we wanted to find out how to counter isolation, because even when we went virtual, virtual still is a sense, really listen, in a great sense, while we are together virtually, we still are isolated. So how do we continue to impact our community and overcome isolation that was produced by COVID? And so the big thing for us was to ramp up our partnerships. That was the biggest thing. And I know that it sounds cliche. I know it sounds old news. I know it sounds like I've heard it all before, but you cannot underestimate the power of partnerships. It is the best way to counter isolation. Dr. Martin Luther King made it clear that no man is an island. We are more interdependent than we are independent. You've relied on so many people from the time you got up out of the bed this morning to when you arrived to get onto this Zoom, because every product and every service was developed, created, produced by somebody else. And so partnership became the major initiative for us. We already had partnerships at work. We were already in partnership with the American Heart Association. We just thought about, is there any other new partnership that we can connect with that would have probably struggled being hit by COVID? So that essentially we can gel together our ideas, our like passion, our resources. And so what I found that was helpful for us doing this is more churches got connected than ever before. I formed major partnerships with churches that maybe we would have never partnered together prior to the COVID. So it's not, we know each other, we know each other's mission now. We get together on Zoom to find encouragement for each other. So some amazing partnerships in my area, like Kingdom Care, Fresh Start, Apostle Palmer and Pastor Barbara Palmer and Apostle Craig Coach. Just those partnerships, they're tightened and strengthened. And then we got connected with our local organizations. That's why we were able to feed 1,200 people per week and continue to do that, having distributed over 50,000 pounds of food because of local partnerships, county partnerships, and just literally just finding those organizations that we can tap and connect to that extends the life and the affirm the valid contributions that we are adding to the community. And so I cannot overemphasize that during COVID-19, one of the things that it just pushed us more into is partnerships, champion partnerships everywhere you go. Don't dismiss somebody because they may not look like you. I like what some of our Hispanic folks are on. This is a Black and brown and beige collaboration. This is a Black and brown and beige commitment. We all come in those various shades. And so partnerships for us doing this COVID partnerships became a ministry. If I could write a book on collaborations and partnerships, that's what I write a book on. That's how you navigate through global crisis.
Oh, thank you so much. And I just want to hone in on what both of you said, partnerships. I love partnerships. It's a part of my title. I love partnerships for all the reasons you both stated. And I'm also going to say that powerful partnerships, meeting people where they are, and speaking with a trustworthy voice are three of the AHA's guiding values. So if you think about our 10 commitments, our commitment to health equity, this shores up making sure that we holding ourselves accountable so that we can make an impact. And I know we have such a great conversation going, and I have been told we're about 5 minutes over time. So what I am going to do, is move us to the last question, which you've kind of already spoke to, and that is, basically, what advice would you give to other organizations? And maybe if you all could do that like within 60 seconds for each of you, and then we'll transition into Q&A. And Bishop Shanklin, since you're up on my screen, I'll start with you, and then Reverend Miles will follow right behind him. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And that's what happens when you get preachers on to do this. So, Pamela, you're exonerated. That's what happens when you get preachers on talking about their passion. So anyway, so I just took 5 seconds to say that. So I'll say that, I love the partnerships with the American Heart Association and the Power to Serve. It is literally transfer. I saw somebody type that churches don't want to give up their soul food. Who said you had to give up soul food? You just need to reinvent soul food, and so that it remains healthy. And I believe that one of the ways that you can get started to start in this is just begin with the end in mind. I know you've heard that before, but it really does work. Start with what you want to do, and then work backwards to find out whether your organization is currently in line with your end. That's the goal. So if you start with the end in mind, when I have a 5-year plan for our organization, I write up what the 5-year plan should look like, and then I go backwards. What should we look like? What adjustments do I need to make now to ensure the success of that 5-year plan? So I write 5 years, 3 years, 1 year, and then I look at where we are currently. And I look back and say, are we in alignment? And if there's things that are out of alignment, we make those adjustments so that we keep on going. So just start with the end in mind.
I appreciate that as well. The vision is necessary. The vision is absolutely key. Over this last year and a half or so, 2.5 years, I should say, now on being on the board, I've just simply learned to ask. And it's really not a begging, it's not a handout. It's really, again, we know our needs best. And so I've learned to simply make the ask. In 30 seconds or less, we knew we were shut down. We knew that vaccinations were an issue. Access was an issue. It was a simple text to one of the board members on the Heart Association who happens to run the hospital. And I said, hey, we got to figure this out. Within 2 weeks, we had a full-on vaccination center that will run between now through May. But it was from an ask. So I know some of the smaller churches or some of the other smaller organizations don't think you can, but it's really just asking the local AHA representatives, or just reaching out to them and have them do the heavy lifting. Or if you know someone who's a board member, it's simply asking and let us do the connectivity for you. But it's simply asking. That's my advice. Don't be afraid to ask. A closed mouth doesn't get fed, and you can tweet that.
That is so true. And as my parents always told me, the only thing we can do is say no. So you better learn how to ask and advocate for yourself. So I have so enjoyed moderating this panel, and I am inspired. I am really, I hope that each one of those that are listening today really understands how each of us has the power. We are able to listen and take the information and put it into action. And sometimes that can be scary, but then at the same time, if we don't jump out there, we will never soar. And so what we're talking about is innovation. We're talking about investment in our communities. And because we've been underinvested, yes, we may not have as many resources, but it's because of lack of investment. So what there is the opportunity is, how do we reframe the conversation? And that's what we're doing today. So with that, I am actually going to turn it over to Diego to help us to navigate some of the questions. Diego, I've tried to incorporate some of the answers as we were moving through the questions, but I will turn it over to you and hope that will help us to make up some time.
No, and Pamela, you really have done a great job of really finding synergy and bringing in those chat box comments into the conversation. I also want to share with everyone who is listening that we are all paying close attention to what's happening in the chat box, and we are going to find ways to address your comments and your questions, and really find programming that's going to really allow this accelerator process to help accelerate your work in your communities. But with that said, let's look at some of the questions. And in the interest of time, I'm going to pull out just a few that really get to the heart of what this conversation is about. So first question that I have highlighted will go like this. Your initiatives are exciting, but how do we transfer those initiatives into actions that impact structural racism in our communities that act as barriers to access and prevent positive outcomes? And then they say, do we invite ourselves to the decision-making tables?
Bishop Shanklin and Reverend Miles, I would like you both to answer those questions, please.
Yes, so that's a great question. Whoever submitted that question, great submission. And I'll just say this just briefly, two responses to that. One, make sure that you form a team that look like where you want to go, because the best way to build trust in diversity is to have diversity represented. That's number one. Number two, as you said, you certainly want to be at the table with the decision makers. And here's the thing about being at the table with decision makers: don't be too picky about what you get assigned when you get to that table, and you'll be surprised at how far and how fast you can climb up in adding value to those decisions that need to be made.
Absolutely. Being at the table is key, and it's a different role than being out on the street. And there's a difference between the two that I think needs to be defined. When we talked about the Safe Return program, if you were to, you can actually research the program itself. It's called Safe Return, or it may show up as Peaceful Surrender, but it's a national program. What we found is we found out about the program. It hadn't happened in 6 or 7 years. We saw what was happening in the streets of Philadelphia, the frustration level. Now, this is prior to George Floyd. This is prior to the riots. We were already boiling and we were frustrated. And we said, look, something's got to give here. And so that's when we took the program that already existed and had happened in Philadelphia. It had just been a while since it had, and it has happened nationally. And we said, hey, let's try this. So we had some relationships and we did it. So again, I'll go back to don't be afraid to try it. Don't be afraid to ask. And it's times folk really want to do the right thing. I just believe that in my heart. They just don't often know what and how to do it. So we become that resource. And so, yes, push your way in. Yeah, and I mean that tongue in cheek, but it's about those relationships that give you access.
I'm just going to add to this really quickly. And that is, I got to hear Brian Barnes, who is out of Atlanta. And he is in this article that's called Shifting Philanthropy from Charity to Justice. And one of the things, I got a chance to hear him speak, and one of the things that he said, you know you are doing a partnership right when you get invited to the other person's table. I want you to think about that. We normally are trying to invite everybody to our table. But you know you've made a partnership or a good relationship when they invite you to their table. It's just like you invite somebody to your house, it's the same thing. So I just wanted to add that, Diego.
I love it. And I think the partnership theme is in line with everything we do at the American Heart Association. And I do appreciate you, Pamela, for sharing not only our 10 commitments, but a few of our guiding values as we set the framework for this conversation. There is one more question in the chat box that I would like the Reverend and the Bishop to address. And it's this one. Where are the small churches in the midst of this pandemic? What are the plans for those small church organizations?
We know that a lot of the smaller churches are hurting, for sure. And for us, we've been that resource. So I did not mention our feeding program, but again, because of the relationship, so what we have done is we've invited them to partner with us. So as we distribute 1,200, 1,300 boxes, we allocate several hundred of those boxes for some of the smaller churches as a support to them. But also everything that we talked about and mentioned with the health initiatives, we have been, it's not exclusively lost on us. We've either tried to model it, be a model, number one, but then help you replicate it at your spot. So when I mentioned about the blood pressure kits, that is absolutely something that every church can do. We partner with the AHA. They brought in a healthy cooking chef. They did the blood pressure screenings after service. It was a wonderful fit. That's a wonderful fit for some of the smaller, less resourced churches, number one. And then number two, I get the economic impact that a lot of the churches are experiencing. And so it's gonna be real important, again, back to relationships. And we are encouraged because the church will always say, that the best is yet to come. We just hold on. And so I think, Bishop, you spoke to, and I'll stop talking, but we've always been resourceful. We've always figured it out. And this is one of those times when, like never before, it's going to take creativity.
And I agree with that also. I just want to leave the small churches with this word, leverage. Just learn to leverage the time that you're in. I had a call from a small church pastor during the height of the pandemic who called and they said, hey, Bishop, here's what we've decided to do. We've decided to close our doors, forego struggling with trying to pay rent, become virtual for a season. Our members agreed to it, and then we'll just save up our resources and then come out on the other side in a different space. And so for the small churches, just leverage the season, because remember, in our DNA is adaptability. In our DNA is flexibility. In our DNA is survival. The church has survived over 2,000 years. That's through wars, famine, pestilence, disease. We have survived for over 2,000 years. And if we can survive what we've survived, we can survive what we can survive. And you can tweet that.
Well, thank you both so much. And really, I think, necessity is the mother of invention. And when we're in these situations is when innovation is most necessary. And I know everyone who's still on the call is really interested to learn a little bit more about how this accelerator is going to be unique. Before we hear from Rhonda Ford Chapman, I just want to give Pamela the opportunity to provide us with some closing remarks and to really provide the bookend on this phenomenal conversation.
I really hate to do that on the heels of two amazing ministers who have really brought a word for us today. And all I will say is thank you so much for having the honor of being to moderate today's discussion. But then most importantly, I think that there are some key salient points. Partnership, just asking, how do we leverage the power of the ask? And then also just connecting the dots so that we can have the greatest impact on our communities. We have been charged with a purpose in order to be the voice for the voiceless and being able to ensure that we utilize the assets that we each have, regardless if they're small or plentiful. But when we put them all together, that is where we can truly, truly make the greatest difference. Thank you again. Thank you, Reverend Miles. Thank you, Bishop Shanklin, and to the Eastern States region for your leadership. Much love.
Pamela, thank you. And we've been hearing just great feedback in the chat box, and we want to hear more from you. I'm going to ask Roxana to please put the link to our survey in the chat box. We want to know how to better serve our communities across the eastern states, and that starts by you identifying what topics of interest you want to partner with the American Heart Association on to make your community stronger, healthier, and see a better vision for the future. But now, I think it's the moment we've all been waiting for. We're gonna open the link for the application process, and Rhonda Ford Chapman, Vice President of Health in Baltimore for the American Heart Association, is gonna share more information about the Empowered to Serve Business Accelerator, faith-based. Please take it away, Rhonda.
Thank you so much, Diego. Wow, what an amazing webinar we've had today. And thank you again, Bishop Shanklin and Reverend Miles, for such a phenomenal presentation. We are tracking all of the responses in the chat box, and we look forward to sending out to you an email following this webinar to everybody that registered, so that you'll have all the links and information that has been referenced during the webinar today. The Business Accelerator is going to officially launch today. So I want everybody to go to empoweredtoserve.org and take a look at the information. The Empowered to Serve Faith-Based Accelerator is a 6 to 8 week opportunity for training around creating a stronger business model and pitching your ideas for the opportunity to receive grant funding. The Faith Accelerator is really about calling for submissions for innovative solutions. We're looking to offer these solutions to our trainers so that you can be offered an opportunity to get a 6 to 8 week business training to help present your ideas via a Shark Tank virtual meeting in June. The Accelerator candidates we're looking for diversity in the submissions, and we're looking for opportunities where you have identified needs in your community and innovative solutions that the faith side is going to either continue or start to help solve those issues for the community. The most exciting part of this is there are grants available. The first place grant award will be $50,000, second place $30,000, and the third place grant award is $20,000. When we have our live Shark Tank pitch night in June, make sure you have your members follow along with you if you are able to make it through the 10 that get selected for the training, because we will also have a fan favorite award of $5,000, which your members can vote for you. The application opens today. It is going to open immediately concluding this webinar, and the application will close April 30th. Look at the link at the bottom. The email for any additional questions or reach out that you need is 2021 Faith-Based Accelerator at heart.org, and we will respond to you very promptly. We also wanted to make sure that you knew that you can go to empoweredtoserve.org on our website. This is our National American Heart Association website, and you'll see Empowered to Serve Accelerator Faith-Based. If you click on that link, it will take you directly to the site where the application is located. You will see apply for the grant. So make sure you go to the Empowered to Serve website. Take a look at the application. Don't forget to look at the second part and create your account first so that you can go back to the application as needed. There are so many other resources available on the Empowered to Serve website, lessons for you to use in your congregations, other webinars that we've done around faith and housing, sponsored by partners such as Enterprise Community Partners. So we really encourage you to take some time and look at the website. And then finally, what I want to make sure you do is submit your request via the link that Diego included in the chat box and will also be in the follow-up email, because we want to work with you here at the American Heart Association. We are so excited about the opportunity to support your work. your outreach in the community, and to all of us join together to collectively solve issues in our communities and serve the communities that we are most involved with. So with that, Diego, I think I did this in like record time. But the one thing Bishop didn't say, and I think as we set up for these calls, the one thing he said, and I'm going to end us on this, and honestly, I am a member of Canaan Baptist Church on 16th Street in Washington, D.C., and I can't wait to tell my pastor this. The role of the faith-based community is not to get rich through their business opportunities. It is to enrich the communities that they serve. And when he said that, it really brought home to me why this effort is so important. I want you to follow along with us, pay attention to the links. We will stay in touch with you. We're going to be offering a series of fireside chats. So I saw some interesting things come up in the chat box around asylum seekers and how can you get together as multiple congregations to work on this really pressing issue right now for communities. I've seen requests about how can we get this information in Spanish language versions, and we will do that for you as well. Tell us what you need. We are here to be responsible. We're listening to you, and we want to be of help. So make sure you send in those interest forms. We will follow back up with you. Look for the follow-up email. And Diego, with that, I'm going to thank everyone again. Pamela, thank you so much for leading the webinar and being such a great facilitator. Diego, you did a fabulous job as our host for the afternoon. And Reverend Miles and Bishop Shanklin, thank you so much. You guys are amazing. I'm going to close with an amen for everything that we heard today. Diego.
Rhonda, thank you so much for those closing remarks. I just want to echo the sentiment that Rhonda shared. We want to do our best to answer as many questions as possible. And even though we did go over time just a little bit today in this presentation, we want to encourage everyone to please submit their questions to us. I'll ask Roxana if she can share that email address one more time where people can submit their questions. We're going to create a nice frequently asked questions document that hopefully will be able to just provide as much information as possible. We've been sharing a lot of links in the chat box throughout this conversation. They are all valuable to helping you better understand how this accelerator is going to work, to help us at the American Heart Association be stronger partners with you in the community. So please encourage you to click, to share, to apply, because really we are doing this because we want to make people live longer, healthier lives across the board, across the region, across our country, and across the world. And the way we do that is by working together, by uplifting our communities, and that's what we're doing here in the Eastern States. So on behalf of everyone in the American Heart Association Eastern States region, thank you for joining us. This meeting has been recorded and it will be shared in the following few days. Take care, everyone.